What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Sword and Shield era. We're not going to go super in-depth on the sealed booster boxes. I will talk about all of them, just briefly when we get to each individual box. But for the most part, I want to look at a few of the cards in each set that are making a move, maybe over the past month or so. Some of these you could extend it out to the past 3 months, but we'll see kind of a trend with some of the lower tier cards making moves and maybe where people are putting their dollars right now. So starting off with Sword and Shield base set, still in the mid 530s, a few boxes on eBay North America below like 650. And I don't think any sold this week actually, buy it now North America. There might have been an auction or something, but no buy it now sales. But when I looked at the card list, there were a couple cards that stuck out to me. The first being the Rainbow Snorlax VMAX, up around 50% on the year. But when we go to the 1 month chart, you can see here up 5%, 3 month chart around 14%. There wasn't anything crazy moving from Sword and Shield base, but this was one of the cards up there. And I think this is the most expensive card now. It's a little bit more expensive than the regular Snorlax. And I will say that this card does have sales up to almost $70 from a couple days ago, so keep an eye on it. It might have a little bit more room to grow. But the other card I noticed from Sword and Shield base was the Snorlax V full art card, which is up around 18% on the month, sitting around $16 USD. And you will see that a lot of these regular full art cards are now starting to move upwards. Not crazy margins, but moving up a little bit where it's kind of at the point where we should acknowledge it. Now, Rebel Clash, same sort of deal. There's a couple boxes listed on eBay. I think this was one of only 2 boxes. This and Darkness Ablaze, in terms of sealed price, were up on the week. Everything else was down, and not like a huge amount, maybe a couple percentage points or whatever, 1%. But Rebel Clash, couple boxes on the market. 0 buy it now sales, again, like Sword and Shield base this week. That is the second or third time now, I think, that we've had a full week where no buy it now sales have happened for Rebel Clash on eBay North America. Now, the Ninetales V, another full art card, was the one card I picked out from the set, up around 16% over the past 3 months. The 1 month chart up around 5%, but you can see it is trending upwards towards $20. Another full art card making a move there. Now, Darkness Ablaze, like I said, it was the other box up a couple dollars this week. You can see here the 3 month chart around $320. 1 month, it's actually over $321 now. I don't know why the 3 month and 1 month charts are always different in terms of price, but it is a $320 box at this point. When we look at the cards inside, the Charizard VMAX is the top card, around 50 bucks. Like, there is nothing of value inside this set. It is very difficult to get even 10% of your money back opening a Darkness Ablaze booster box. But there was 1 or 2 cards I think I pulled out of here, maybe only one. The Salamence V, again, another full art, up around 11% on the month, sitting around $3.43. So not a very expensive card at all, but it is a trend that a lot of these cards that are full arts are making moves. It's very difficult to find full arts that aren't moving up. And we'll see some better examples too when we get later in the video, when we get to like Evolving Skies and Silver Tempest, Lost Origin, etc. Vivid Voltage, around $250, a decent amount of supply out there. I will say right now that when we were in peak Sword and Shield booster box, era, when everything was moving up crazy, 20, 30% moves basically overnight, you would have been hard pressed to find more than maybe like 1 or 2 cases worth of boxes listed below a 20% move from TCG player price. Now we're sitting somewhere between like 5 and 15 cases for a lot of the alternate art sets. I think Vivid Voltage is in that range, like the higher end range as well. I know it's not an alt art set, but it was up there around 12, 13 cases, I think, worth of boxes still available below like $300, $301. But with all that said, Vivid Voltage was actually the best selling Sword and Shield booster box this week on eBay buy it now sales, not including auctions, but I think it was around 2.7, 2.8 boxes per day buy now, something like that. So it's doing pretty decently still for what the set is. And the one card I pulled out of here, there might be 2 cards actually. This Rayquaza, which I believe is an amazing rare or something like that, which is just a different uncommon where it kind of has this splotchy background. I didn't notice this card over the past couple months has made a massive move, up 111%. At its low, it was around $8.50. At its peak, we're up to around $25. Now sitting around 18 bucks. I'm sure, someone's probably talked about this before, but I hadn't looked super in-depth to Vivid Voltage in a while, so this was the first time I had actually seen this card, I think ever, just because it had climbed the ranks so far. And another card from Vivid Voltage I wanted to point out, the Pikachu V Full Art. Again, another Full Art, up around 37% over the past 3 months, and a lot of that has been over the past 35, 40 days, I'd say. Now moving into battle styles, a lot of this still out there doing its thing around 285. I still suspect that this box will get to $300 by the end of the year. I could be wrong, but I think that's still a possibility with more than 2 months left in the year. The Tyranitar V, not much to talk about here. It has leveled out around $290. I think recent sales are closer to like 250, 260, but there's only been a couple of them over the past week or so on TCG Player. The Mimikyu V, another full art, up 15.63% over the past month. So that will be a trend, not just for the full arts to follow, but now Mimikyus, you'll see, I believe, 1 or 2 more coming up later on the list here. Chilling Rain, this was a box last week that had decent sales volume, and there wasn't a ton of boxes out there compared to a lot of other alt art sets. That's changed this week. The sales volume was way down, even though I think there was like 2 or 3 cases, sealed cases that sold. As you guys know, in my spreadsheet, I don't count sealed cases towards the total sales volume, but it is something I make note of, and that was the most sealed cases of Chilling I'd seen sell probably since like May or something like that in a week's time on eBay. Now, the Blissey V, we talked about the Chansey, I believe, from Twilight Masquerade maybe a week or so ago, and just because that card was moving, I figured we'd check on Blissey, and you can see here, up 30, almost 31% over the past 3 months. And a lot of that has come in the past month, up 22.16%. We also have the Celebi V Max Rainbow card, which is up around 32, 33% over the past 90 days. And the past month, up around 15 or so percent. Now, getting into Evolving Skies, this box, like all the others, starting to level off. When we're at peak insanity for Sword and Shield, there was maybe like 2 or 3 cases worth of this box on the open market below $3,000. I think we're at the point now, there's probably like 10 cases or so, 11 cases, maybe even 12 listed below about 3.1K. So it's going to take a while before we consistently see 3K sales on Evolving Skies again. But a few more full art cards. I wanted to talk about the Umbreon V, up around 33% over the past 3 months, sitting around $63 now. Another rainbow card, you have the Rayquaza VMAX, up 24%, almost 25% on the month, sitting around $62. And I think recent sales on this are even higher. You can see here over the past couple days, $84.10, $70, another one at $80, $75, $75, $85. So a couple pushing into the 80-ish range, and a couple that are definitely higher than $62. We've also seen the Rayquaza V full art card from Evolving Skies make a move up to around 35-ish bucks. That's a 58% gain over the past 90 days. And the Sylveon V as well over the past month has made a very large move up to around $33 now, which is a 38.22% gain in the past 30 days, and sales up to almost $40 as well from today, October 15th. Now, moving into Fusion Strike, we could talk about a lot of the top cards like the Altar, Gengar VMAX, etc., but a lot of those have quieted off a little bit. They're not making the massive waves that they did a month back or so. But the Gengar VMAX is the card that, even though it has made its move already, is something I didn't really see a lot of people talk about. This card went from around $20 all the way up to, I believe, like $65 at its peak, now sitting around $50 and consistently selling in this range. I actually remember pulling this card last year when it was like a $5 or $10 card, like way back in September, October, sometime before the boom took place. So that card has gone on a generational run over the past 12 months. Moving into Brilliant Stars, this is a box I want to talk about a little bit here for a second. It was up to around $550, maybe $545 last week. You can see here, very close to $550. We're now down to around $522 on TCG Player. A lot of this has to do with like the past 7 or 8 recent sales being under $500. Some as low as I think like $450 on the platform. I will say that hasn't really affected what I've seen on eBay. There's still a lot of boxes listed around like $525, $535, etc. There's a couple lower ones obviously, but I don't think we're going to see a massive pullback on Brilliant Stars. Actually, compared to a lot of the other alt art sets, there's less supply out there. I think there's probably half of what there is for something like Fusion or Evolving Skies or even lost origin at this point. So really, I think a lot of that pullback does just have to do with those, handful of sales on TCG Player. But there are some cards that I want to point out in Brilliant Stars. The first one, which we've talked about before on the channel, the RCSV is now the third most expensive card in the set, sitting around $65, $66. This was a card that for the longest time was sitting around $40 USD. It was just hard stuck. It just seemed like it was a matter of time before that card made a move up. And with, I think, the Palkia moving from Astral Radiance up to around 85, this card's also made a move up around 50% or so. Another card that's made a decent move, the Mimikyu V, which if we go look at the list here, is the fifth most expensive card currently in the set. It's actually higher than the Umbreon V Trainer Gallery. This has moved up around 48% over the past 3 months, and a decent amount of that has also come in the past 30 days. We also see another Pikachu V Full Art on the list, up around 20% over the past month on TCG Player. This is sitting around $14, $15 USD. Now, moving into Astral Radiance, again, not a lot to talk about here. It's doing its thing around $400, $405. Decent amount of supply out there. Not selling that great, which shouldn't be a surprise. The one card I pulled out from the set, the Jirachi V, another full art, up 47.5% over the past 90 days. Past month, up 12.54%. So you can see at this point, a lot of these full art cards, people have been buying up, moving them somewhere between like 20 and 50, 60%. I think there's probably a couple outliers that are a bit higher than that, but most of them have been in that range. Now moving on to Lost Origin, a couple more sets here to get through, guys. This box doing its thing as well. There's a decent amount of supply out there. Sales volume has come down. That shouldn't be a surprise. It's still in that 800-ish range. The Mew VMAX, this is a card that has already really made its move up from around $10 to, I think at its peak, close to $30. We're now sitting around $20-ish, I believe, $21. And it is selling pretty consistently in that range, I'd say, 4 or 5 sales a day. You also have the Giratina V Full Art. This is up 44% over the past 90 days, and past month up around 13%. And then moving on to Silver Tempest, the final set we're going to talk about today. Still not at $500, but I still think it's possible that it gets there before the end of the year. Obviously, a lot of the top cards have made great moves, like the Rayquaza V Trainer Gallery, the Lugia alternate art, but I want to talk about a few of the lower tier cards, starting with the Lugia V-Star. This gold card is up around 107% over the past 3 months. I'm not sure if this card is playable. I'm pretty sure that the Lugia for a long period of time was a playable card, so I'm not entirely sure if this is just collectors or if this is tied to the current meta. If you guys do know, leave a comment down below. We also have the Rayquaza VMAX. This is up 103% over the past 90 days, now sitting around $23 USD. The Alolan Vulpix V-Star, this is up 14% over the past 3 months, and over the past month, only up around 4%, but it is a rainbow that is moving up. I figured I would throw it in here. And a couple more, Lugia V Full Art, up around 62% over the past 90 days, sitting around $14-ish. The Blissey V, another Blissey on the list, up 17%, sitting around $12 USD. And then the final card, the Mawile V, sitting around $10 USD now, which is up 141.2% over the past 90 days. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this is the first time I've ever actually seen this Mawile V card. The reality is, when I look at the card lists for a lot of sets, I normally just pay attention to the top like 20 cards. Anything outside of that is something that I just don't ever notice, honestly, unless I'm going super deep into a set to make a video. But this is a pretty solid artwork, and it doesn't surprise me now that people are starting to pump some of these cards, especially with a lot of the top cards being very expensive and kind of out of reach for some collectors. If you're trying to find some cool cards on a budget, this is definitely one that I imagine would show up in certain card lists, like, top 10 cards under $10 or something like that. It's kind of the same thing with like the Lugias or some of these other top cards. Like if you can't afford a $400 alternate card, you might be happy picking up some of these full arts for 10 to 15 bucks. So maybe that's what's going on. Maybe there's another reason, but either way, a lot of these full arts, rainbows, etc. are starting to make moves. But that's gonna be it for the video. If you guys got some value out of this, I'd really appreciate if you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below for the algorithm. It helps out a ton. With that said, thank you so much for watching the video. Stay safe wherever you are in the world, and I'll catch you in the next one.